Welcome to this webinar about the possibilities for you as a Umeå University researcher to get open access publishing fees paid in full or in part through library agreements with various publishers. I will start this presentation with a brief background on open access and the APC payment model. And I'll then focus on current agreements that the library has with various publishers and their structure. And I will focus on a practical approach, answering three questions. What can make you eligible for inclusion under the agreements? What do you have to do for them to cover your publication? And how do you know if a journal is included? This webinar will focus on general aspects of our agreements. I could hold one webinar each for each of our agreements and its details, but today we'll focus more on the big picture. I'll use examples from the big five publishers, Elsevier, Wiley, Taylor & Francis, Springer, and Sage, but I can take questions on other agreements as well. The focus will also be on agreements where you have a full discount, where the entire open access fee is paid. The library has agreements with partial discounts too, and I'll show you where you can read more about all our agreements later. And finally, the focus will be on journal publishing, not books or other publication types, and that is only because that is what the current deals that we have include today. So let's move on to the brief background on open access and the agreement model. When you publish today, you face a choice between traditional publishing or open access publishing. Open access arose as a reaction to the traditional subscription-based system and was based on the idea that research results should be available for all, as well as the position that scholarly publishing is not sustainable in the existing system. The costs and the profits are incorrectly distributed. And if you combine this with the emergence of internet, opening up for a whole new scale and potential models for the circulation of research results, the open access movement became a fact. Open access means that everyone should have access to published research results without having to pay for the access and without barriers. Paying for access is meant to be phased out, and with that, the whole financing model for scholarly publishing should be phased out too, is the idea. So the subscription model out. But how are research results to be circulated instead? And how should the circulation and review be financed? Several suggestions have been made and are still for how open access should work, but one that has come to dominate the conversation at the moment is that we should stay with a scholarly journal model, but charge the ones who want to publish instead of at access point. And the payment model where author pays is called Article Processing Charge, or APC. And this model is used in pure open access journals where all the articles are published or open access, and also in hybrid journals. Hybrid journals are subscription-based journals that still charge the subscription fee for full access to all articles in the journal, but also offer authors to pay an article processing charge to make a single article openly accessible. Previously, authors have paid the article processing charge, but many agree that this is not a sustainable way forward. Also, it's not sustainable to keep up two payment flows to the publishers where the library pays large and expanding subscription charges and our researchers pay the APCs, often for the same journals. So the idea is to transfer the costs wholly to the higher education institutions and research funders, and this idea has gained momentum in the last few years. The process of transferring costs to the institutions and merge the payment flows has already started. In Sweden, the Swedish National Library Consortium BIBSAM has introduced demands that open access costs should also be covered in their renegotiations of existing subscription deals with publishers. And this open access clause in the renegotiations was of course a factor in the breakdown of the negotiations with Elsevier. So Sweden cancelled the deal. But from 1st of January, we have an agreement with Elsevier covering both the reading rights, the subscription costs, and the publishing rights and the costs for publishing. For our researchers then, in a large number, excuse me, of Elsevier's hybrid as well as open access journals. And we also, as I mentioned before, have agreements with Wiley, Springer, Taylor & Francis, Sage, Cambridge and Oxford University Press, American Chemical Society, Institute of Physics. We have 23 agreements in total. And I've underlined some of them. You can't really see that here. Some of them are green, that's the full discount, and some are red, that's partial discounts. Of course, we have this information on our website, more structured. Because these agreements have been negotiated with different publishers with different business models, the agreements are not the same, and they have variations in the terms and conditions. Also, they've been negotiated with one publisher at a time, a very time-consuming process. So therefore, mostly the agreements we have today are with the bigger publishers, so we don't have a full coverage for all publishers. These agreements are often referred to as read and publish agreements because reading and publishing costs are included. But this means that the subscription model and the open access model both live on side by side. The idea is, though, that these agreements are to be transformative, that the journals should flip to full open access in time, and then the agreements would be pure publish agreements. We already have one, well, actually two. We have one pure publish agreements with an open access publisher. So that's for publication charges for full open access journals only with Frontiers. It's worth noting that why the agreements cover different types of journals, hybrid and or open access, is often due to when they were signed. So early agreements, like the ones with Taylor and Francis and Oxford, for example, only cover the hybrid journals because they were based on the existing subscription agreements. With time, in negotiations, the open access journals were included as well. So for Elsevier, Wiley, and Sage, the open access journals are included in the agreements. For Sage, it's 100% discount on the hybrid journals, 20% for publishing in their open access journals. And Springer, that was a kind of a special case. That was the first agreement that we had, and that was only for hybrid journals. But from 2019, another agreement was signed with Springer for their open access journals. So now we have coverage for both hybrid and open access journals with Springer as well. And with that, we have reached the practical part of this presentation. What do you have to do to make sure that you can publish with open access under the agreements and get the open access fee paid by the library? And this can be broken down into three parts, the questions that I mentioned here in the beginning. The first one is, what makes you eligible for inclusion under the agreement? So what are the terms and conditions? Secondly, what you have to do for the agreement to cover your publication. So how does it work in practice? And lastly, how do you know if a journal that you want to publish in is included in any of the library agreements? So we'll start with terms and conditions, and I'll continue with what you have to do to be covered by the agreements. So terms and conditions. There are terms that apply to pretty much all of our agreements, and then there are specific terms for certain agreements as well. For basically all of the agreements, the affiliation of the corresponding author determines which institution agreements that applies. So the agreements are negotiated on consortia level, but each higher education institution has signed and thereby has their own agreement with the publisher. This means that if you have co-authors from other institutions, you have to be corresponding author in order for Umeå University's agreements to apply to your publication. A corresponding author can have different roles depending on discipline, but for this purpose, we mean the person whose email is given to the publisher, the person who handles correspondence with the publisher and the journal. And I said the corresponding author's affiliation is important. So how can we determine then who is affiliated to Umeå University? Do you need to have a formal employment, or what level of affiliation actually counts here? And what about students writing articles based on master's thesis? Can they be corresponding author, or does the agreement not apply to them? In principle, what we as payers of the charges want to see as a basis for approval is that the work that has resulted in the article has been performed at Umeå University. So here, as well as nationally and in the international guidelines that exist, we assume that the best way to judge this is the affiliation stated in the article itself. This gives a clear indication that the work has been done at Umeå University, and it also means that the article will be counted in measurements of the university's output. So always state an affiliation to Umeå University in the article for the corresponding author. If you do not, the article will not be covered by the agreement. But what if you have more than one affiliation? Well, you should always state the relevant affiliations in their entirety in the article. However, for some agreements, Umeå University needs to be stated as the first affiliation in order for the agreement to apply and work. We will try to clarify this on our website soon as well, but ask us if anything is unclear on that. We've gathered information on our website about the terms and conditions, and I thought I would show you how that looks now. Right, so you should now be able to see my screen with discount information. And here we've listed, oh, this is in Swedish now, that's not very good. Let me change to English. Yeah, and Marika just shared the link as well to this page in the chat. So here you can see the information that we have on our website. We've collected the general terms first, and then specific terms per publisher. And specific terms can be, for example, for the Elsevier agreement, there's a start date, is the 1st of January 2020, and it applies to manuscripts submitted after January 1st. While for Wiley, we have the same start date, but it applies to manuscripts accepted on or after the 1st of January 2020. Another example of a specific terms and conditions is for Taylor and Francis, where it says that the agreement includes original papers and review papers only, not editorial material. So that's that. How do you then make sure that you're identified as an eligible author and have your article included under our agreement? Well, each publisher has their own author workflow. The function is the same, to identify eligible authors and then make sure that that affiliation is verified or checked. So the publisher needs to identify you as an Umeå University researcher in order for the agreement to apply. So therefore, make sure you always state Umeå University whenever you're asked to state institution or payer, so not just in the article. Also, it's a very good idea to always use your Umeå University email. That's also used as an identifier in several systems. If you want to use a corresponding author that doesn't have an Umeå University email address, for example, a student, check with us if that particular publisher has a mail-based identification or not. We can try and figure that out. But as the process goes, you will probably get an email from a publisher, the journal, when your manuscript has been accepted. Congratulations, it's time to sign the publishing agreement. This is when open access choices, you have to make open access choices, and when you're asked to provide payer information. Here, something that quite a few people actually miss out on or forget is to choose open access and not subscription publication. And how clear that choice is kind of depends on publisher, but do make sure that you choose open access if you intend to publish with open access. Springer, Wiley, and Sage all sent very clear emails upon acceptance where they state that you may be covered by an agreement and instructions for how to proceed. Elsevier is not as clear at all. As far as I know, it's not mentioned in the email itself. But if you read the fine print when you get to choose standard or open access publication, you can see that you might be eligible and how to proceed. Taylor and Francis were working on clarifying their information on our website. They have some quite unclear choices, but the good news is you can't really go wrong in their system. You will get offered open access via the agreement, whether you choose open access or not, pretty much. For many of our agreements, especially the big ones, that is all you have to do. You state an affiliation to Umeå University or a center at Umeå University in the article. You state Umeå University whenever you're asked for institution, and you choose open access. And that's you all done. It will vary when in the process this verification takes place, and hence it will vary when you get confirmation that a deal will cover the publication. But you should be notified either way, and if not, contact us. As I mentioned, especially for agreements with smaller publishers, you might need to take further steps to be covered by the agreement. It's not as automatic. We've tried to gather guides on our web for each publisher for how to go through the process. step by step. So there's often links to information from the publisher as well on our website to help you out. If something is not clear or information is missing, get in touch with us and we will help you out. At this point, when you're signing a publishing agreement, you're also offered a choice of Creative Commons license, and we don't have time to go into that now, but I just wanted to let you know that you can read more about Creative Commons licenses on our website as well, on our copyright pages, and you can also get in touch with us if you want to discuss your choice further. Before the library approves the payment of the open access charge for an article, we want to make sure that the affiliation to Umeå University is present in the article, of course. However, we don't have access to that information from all publishers. Therefore, if we can't confirm the affiliation, we will contact you and ask you for a copy of the first page of the manuscript. This is not because you have done something wrong anywhere, it's because the publisher's systems aren't perfect. So to sum up, what you need to do to be covered by agreements is to state an Umeå University affiliation for the corresponding author, check specific terms and conditions, choose open access, and follow the guides provided. So now you know how to check the agreement terms and what you need to do, but perhaps the most important factor still remains. Is the journal you are considering actually included in any agreement? The agreements don't cover all journals from the publishers necessarily. They cover a big part of their catalogs, yes, but many have exceptions, society journals, for example, and journals that don't offer open access at all. We will launch a search tool where you can search for a specific journal and check if it is included in any agreement. And this pilot version of the search tool will be launched in the next few days. It will be called Open Access Discount Search. And everyone joining this webinar now live will have access via a special link already. But this service will move to a new domain in the next few days. The new domain will be oads.ub.umu.se. So for anyone joining this after the live webinar, use that link or access via the library website. For those of you joining live today, the link is apc.ub.umu.se, and there is a link in the chat window now for you. And I just, before we finish, wanted to give you a quick tour of this search tool. So I will just share my screen with you again. And I'll change the language here to English as well. I hope you can see the open access discount search now. Otherwise, let me know. I'm not getting the usual green window to show what I'm actually showing you. So I'll just show you a quick search using this tool. Oh, I've already done a search here. You can search with any combination of words. You can add more words if the title is a long title. The fastest and most focused way to search, I think, is to use this. Let's see what we say here in the chat. Oh, my manuscript is showing. Hold on. I don't want you to see that. 1 second. We'll try again. Ah, that's better, I think. Okay, so we've started the search here, and you can search and then enter any combination of words and press search, or you can use this drop-down list to find the journal you're looking for. There's no subject search offered yet, only title and ISSN searches. Once you perform a search, you will get immediate information on whether the journal is included in any agreement, as well as how much discount that you get, the publishing model, and a link to more information and the terms and conditions. It's not a good idea to just search and then take a gamble that your publication will work out. So always check the terms and if there's anything that you have to do. Okay, and that was what I had to say as the presentation part. So now I'm opening up for questions if anyone has any questions about these agreements. I'd say it's not important in the manuscript itself. There you should always state Umeå with an
of course.
But I think if there is a drop-down list or any kind of choices that are automatically filled in, try Umeå and then try Umeå if you don't get any hits, I'd say. Because you want the system to automatically identify you, and if it doesn't understand, oh, well, then we have a problem. Yeah. You can that kind of depends on what the question is, but you can always contact us if you have anything not working. Of course, you might get a quicker answer if it's a technical issue from the journal itself. But whether this is important or not kind of varies as well between publishers, because some may only use what you're putting into the system to identify you. Some use that, they use your email, they use what you put in the manuscript. If nothing checks out, they do a manual check as well. So that really depends on the publisher. But as long as you get that email saying you're probably eligible, you're fine. They've identified you. If there's no mention of an agreement, you might want to investigate further, I'd say. Yes, and with that being said, I mean, most Swedish universities have the same kind of agreement terms, or at least similar, but it depends whether they signed the agreement the same way we did, or if they've had another separate negotiation for a smaller discount. And internationally, of course, the agreements look different depending on country as well. We only have agreements via the BIBSAM negotiations at the moment. We don't have any ones that we've negotiated ourselves.
Okay. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
For Elsevier, for example, we've also signed the part for self-press, and not all universities have that. So the coverage of journals might differ between the universities as well.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's why we have our own search tool at the moment. Of course, we're hoping to build a national one in the future, but it kind of depends, because we have a few various terms and conditions and journals included as well. Yes. This list might actually change during the year as well, unfortunately, but that would only be minor changes, journals switching from hybrid to open access, for example. But we have seen Elsevier has removed 2 journals from the list as well, and we're concerned about that kind of changes. But especially, well, at the end of year, the list will change and will be updated for the next year. Yes.
Okay.
The only factor that matters is who is stated as corresponding author. And for some publishers, you can state several corresponding authors, yes, maybe 2. And as far as we've been told, that means that either corresponding author is fine for the one who has an agreement. But the most important thing is to make sure that the Umeå University researcher is corresponding author. Otherwise, it will not be, the agreements won't apply. Yes, it would.
Okay.
But then the question might be if the systems identify it properly. So there might be some technical glitches, but I would always just check that with the publisher to make sure as well. But as far as we've been told, yeah, of course, because it is corresponding author that we've agreed on is the determining factor. I just have a request for you now, because you have access to this search tool. Let us know if you like it, or if there's anything you want us to develop further. Also, let us know if there's any development of other services that you would like to see from the library in supporting you in publishing and open access publishing that can make it easier for you to publish. You have the links to our website and all the information in the chat. There's also information on our website on self-archiving as an option if your publication for some reason is not covered by an agreement. So check that out as well if you're interested. There's a contact form on our website if you want to reach us, and I encourage you to if anything is unclear or you want further guidance on publishing. You can book Skype one-on-one meetings, you can book department visits or sessions for your research group via Zoom with me or a colleague of mine. So the doors are open. Thank you very much for joining me today.